The Story of Uncle Elias. In September 1887, my wife was visiting some of her family. So I was staying with my old friend, Sherlock Holmes, in Baker Street. It was a windy, stormy evening, and the rain was falling heavily outside. "If he comes on business in this weather, it's important," said Sherlock Holmes. "I've come to ask for help," he said. "Well, sit down," said Holmes, "and tell me about yourself." "My father, Joseph, had a brother, my uncle Elias, who went to live in America when he was young. But when the South lost the war, and there was equality for black people, Uncle Elias left America. So, in 1869, he came back to England and went to live in a large house in the country. He did not want any friends," John Openshaw went on, "and he often drank a lot. But he liked me, and when I was 12, I moved to Uncle Elias's house. But there was one small room at the top of the house which was always locked. One day, Uncle Elias got a letter from Pondicherry, in India. I began to laugh, but stopped when I saw my uncle's white face. "K.K.K," he cried. "Oh, my God, they've found me." "What do you mean, Uncle?" I asked. I looked at the envelope, which had 3 Ks on the back. Who sent it? And why was my uncle so afraid? Uncle Elias went immediately to the secret room and took out a box which also had 3 Ks on it. He burnt all the papers in the box and said to me, "John, I know that I'm going to die soon. My brother, your father, will have all my money and my house after my death. I hope you can enjoy it, but if not, give it to your worst enemy. I'm afraid that my money brings death with it." I didn't understand what he meant, and nothing happened for a few weeks, so I did not feel so worried. He stayed in his room most of the time, and drank more than before. Then one night, he drank very heavily, and ran wildly out of the house. And in the morning, we found him dead in a river. The police said he killed himself, but I knew he was afraid to die, so I didn't think that was true. "When did your uncle get the letter from India? And when did he die?" "The letter arrived on the 10th of March, 1883, and he died 7 weeks later," answered John Openshaw. "After my uncle's death, my father moved into the house. Of course, I asked him to look carefully at the locked room, but we didn't find anything important." More pips. "Everything went well until a year later," said John Openshaw. "But one morning my father opened a letter to find 5 orange pips inside it. There's K.K.K on the envelope. Those letters were on Uncle Elias's envelope too." We were both shaking and afraid. "Yes, and this time it says, 'Put the papers in the garden.'" "Which papers? The papers in Uncle Elias's box? He burnt them," I said. "And where does this letter come from?" my father said. "Dundee, Scotland." "Well, I don't know anything about pips or papers." "I'm not going to do anything." "Father, you must tell the police," I said. I remembered my uncle's letter from India. I was very worried. "No, they'll laugh at me. Let's just forget about it," he replied. 3 days later, my poor father went to visit an old friend who lived some miles away. They decided it was an accident, but I didn't agree. I thought it was murder, and I could not forget the 5 orange pips and the strange letters to my uncle and my father. But I've tried to forget, and I've lived alone in that house for nearly 3 years now. The young man showed us an envelope with K.K.K on the back and 5 small orange pips. It comes from East London, and it says, "Put the papers in the garden." Those are the words that were in the letter to my father. "Well, I've talked to the police," said Openshaw unhappily, "but they laughed at me. They think that there's nothing to worry about." "How stupid they are," cried Holmes. "And why didn't you come to me immediately? Your enemies have had almost 2 days to make a plan. Haven't you found anything which will help us?" March the 12th, visited Robinson and finished business with him. "Put this paper into your uncle's box. Put in a letter which says that your uncle burnt all the other papers, and put the box outside in the garden." "How are you going home?" "By train, from Waterloo Station," replied Openshaw. He went out into the dark night, the wind, and the rain. K.K.K. Then he said to me, "John Openshaw is in real danger. Why did his uncle Elias have to leave America?" "Because he had enemies." "Does that tell you anything?" asked Holmes. "The writer was on a ship when he wrote the letters," I replied. "Somebody sent some pips from India and arrived 7 weeks later to kill Uncle Elias. Then he sent some pips from Scotland and arrived 3 days later to kill John's father. You see why I'm worried now? He has sent pips to John from London. John's enemy is in London already." "Good God, Holmes," I cried. "Who is this man?" "More than one man, I think. That explains the K.K.K. They wanted to stop equality for black people and to kill anyone who didn't agree with them. But in 1869, Uncle Elias, who belonged to this secret group, suddenly left America with all their papers. And so the group could not go on. You remember the half-burnt paper? That was Uncle Elias's American diary. While he was working for the K.K.K., he sent the pips to frighten those 3 men. 2 left the country, but 1 didn't. So the K.K.K. finished business with him. Or killed him. The K.K.K. always worked like that." "Well, I hope they won't kill young Openshaw," I said. The last deaths. The next morning we read in the newspaper that John Openshaw was dead. A policeman found him in the river near Waterloo Station. The police said it was an accident, but Holmes was very angry about it. On it he wrote, S.H. for J.C. I'm sending the pips not from the K.K.K., but from me, Sherlock Holmes, to Captain James Cahoon. He and his men are sailing back to Georgia, USA, now. How did you find him, Holmes? I asked. Only one ship, the Star, was in the 3 ports at the right times. and this morning the Star left London to sail back to Georgia. I found out that the captain and 2 of his men, all Americans, weren't on the ship last night, so I'm sure they killed poor John Openshaw. When they arrive in America, they'll get the pips, and then the police will catch them. Sherlock Holmes is a very clever detective, but he can do nothing about the weather. The winter storms at sea that year were worse than ever. And so the Star never arrived in Georgia, and nobody saw the captain or his men again. The murderers of John Openshaw did not get the pips, but in the end, death came to them.
Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to see the latest videos. Thank you.